story of the transfiguration of Jesus comes to us as almost an interlude in the Gospel of Luke. One scholar, Derek Weber, even called it an odd little mystical moment on the top of a mountain, witnessed by only a few. And those few were so bewildered by the event, it was a kindness when they were told not to talk about it as they walked down the mountain. Without this odd little moment, however, the crucial question of the identity of Jesus would remain a mystery. As it is, the question is still only partially answered, but at least there is something of an answer. It follows Peter's answer to the question Jesus asked of him, "Who do you say I am?" Peter answered by saying, "God's Messiah." Jesus responded with a warning to them all to not say this to anyone. And then he began to say something that in the moment would have made no sense to them at all. "The Son of Man must suffer many things," he said, "and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of law. And he must be killed, and on the third day be raised to life." In this context, Jesus' words can only mean that this is what a Messiah is and what a Messiah will do. It is not, however, what they expected. If they began to tell others that Jesus was the true Messiah, then they would all surely get the wrong idea, and they would believe that Jesus was going to become their leader in a revolution to overthrow Roman rule, perhaps establishing a righteous kingdom of God on the bones of those he trampled upon. But instead, Jesus told them, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. Whoever is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his glory and the glory of the Father and of the holy angels." The glory Jesus promised them was not the glory of battles won, but of lives transformed. And they were clearly not ready to hear this, nor to understand what such glory might mean for them. And so he added rather cryptically these words, "Truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the kingdom of God." That is what precedes this odd little moment in the story of Jesus. 8 days later, Jesus took Peter, James, and John up onto the mountain to accompany him while he prayed. There, as Jesus was praying, they got a glimpse of the real Jesus. The appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us," John would write later, "and we beheld his glory. The glory is that of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth." Hold on to that. Next, they saw that Jesus was not alone. 2 men stood with him, and somehow they knew them to be Moses and Elijah. They appeared in glorious splendor, talking with Jesus. They spoke about his departure, which he was about to bring to fulfillment in Jerusalem. Now these 3 disciples were wide awake. Here was Jesus and the 2 most important men in the history of the Jewish people, impossibly together in one place and moment in time. And like in ages past, all around the glory of God shone upon their faces. It helps to remember your Old Testament and how the face of Moses actually frightened them because it glowed with the glory of God whenever he came down from the mountaintop, and the ground beneath their feet shook as he shared with them the 10 commandments of God. And it helps to remember that the prophet Elijah didn't live and die like other men, but was carried off into heaven in a whirlwind, or maybe a flaming chariot. Either way, many expected him to return before the Messiah could come. Here Luke makes the case that Elijah did return. Here symbolically, the giver of the law and the greatest of all the prophets stood side by side with Jesus, surrounded by the glory of God, to say to these disciples, "This is the one we told you about." Later in the Gospel of Luke, following the resurrection, Jesus would tell them, "This is what I told you while I was still with you. Everything must be fulfilled that is written about me in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms." The law and the prophets foretold the coming of Jesus. And then, just for good measure, They had a summit upon the mountaintop. What came out of that summit was the conclusion we should have as well, that Jesus is more than just a political Messiah. Jesus is the fulfillment of all that was before. Jesus himself said, "Do not think I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill." In Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15, we read the promise of Moses that the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your fellow Israelites. You must listen to him. Moses was there on the mountaintop to say Jesus is this person. The prophet Malachi wrote, "See, I will send the prophet Elijah to you before that great and dreadful day of the Lord comes." Some said that John the Baptist fulfilled that role, but he did not claim to be anything more than he was, just a voice crying in the wilderness, "Prepare the way for the Lord." Elijah was there on the mountaintop to make it clear that the hour had come for Jesus to be recognized now, and we should listen to him. Peter's first instinct, of course, was to try and capture the moment for eternity by building 3 structures, one for each of them. He didn't understand that these structures were not required. The law and the prophets were all in Jesus. They were not 3, they were become one and the same, and they always had been. And then, if all this was not enough, as in days of old, when a cloud once covered Mount Sinai, signifying God's presence there, yet again a cloud covered them all that day, and a voice spoke to them from within it. The words were similar but different from that affirmation of Jesus at the time of his baptism. The words then were addressed to Jesus himself, saying, "You are my son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased." This time the words were addressed to Peter, James, and John, and through them to all of us as well. "This is my son, whom I have chosen. Listen to him." And with those words, the odd little mystical moment was over. Jesus was still there. Moses and Elijah were gone. The cloud was gone, and things looked normal, I guess. But Jesus was still there. The very embodiment of all of God's glory, the substance of the law and the prophets, and all the aspirations of humanity. There he was, the man they thought they knew, but not quite the Messiah they had expected. Peter, James, and John had a lot to think about. They didn't tell anyone what they had seen because in truth, they probably didn't understand it yet. I'm sure it was to them, as it remains to us, a glory puzzling and yet hope-giving. If this is who Jesus really is, then God help us. We really should listen to him. Be safe, and God bless you.